It's Talk Gnosis, it's fall, it's October when you're watching and listening to this. It is his time, folks. It is his reign. We have the Holly King himself with us. You will hear him on many podcasts between now and New Year's Day. Benito Cereno, welcome so much back to the show. We're extra amazingly, maddeningly hyped to have you because Benito Cereno is back publishing monthly. Well, he's not publishing them. Other people, big companies are publishing Benito Cereno's comics every month. You can go down to your comic book store and buy one. Benito, let's do the plugs at the top of the show for everything that's out there for people, both your present comic books, your past ones that they can buy in back issues or on Comixology or something, and of course your podcast.
Let's start with comics. Right now, I've got an ongoing series from Skybound and Image called Blood and Thunder with the artist E.J. Sue and the colorist M. Sassy K. And we are, it's a monthly sci-fi action series. Issue 5 is out now. Issue 6 will be out in early October. And it's about an alien bounty hunter and her talking gun, and they're on the pursuit of the most dangerous fugitive in the galaxy, and they chase him from planet to planet. And they're currently on a planet that is a Dracula.
Seasonally appropriate as well.
So also coming in October, the first issue of Hector Plasm, Hunt the Bigfoot. This is the return of my character Hector Plasm, who I created with Nate Bellegarde. But this new miniseries is going to be drawn by Derek Hunter with colors by Spencer Holt. And this is a 3-part story about Hector, who is typically a ghost hunter and witch fighter, but he gets recruited when he is in a small Pacific Northwest town to try and help prove the existence of Bigfoot by the local proprietor of a small Bigfoot museum. He is reluctant to do so, but then people start getting murdered, apparently by Bigfoot. And so he sticks around to try and can he save this town, find the Bigfoot, and save a small local business. These are all the goals of that one. So that first issue will be out October 15th of 2025, and that'll be a 3-parter. So October, November, December, we'll have those. And also in December, just announced recently, I have a big fat book of St. Nicholas and Santa Claus stories for Christmas. It is called the Startling Tales of Santa Claus, the 2025 annual, which is my way of signaling that I hope to do one of these every year. It is 80 pages. It has 6 stories. Some of them, if people have closely followed my work for some reason, they'll know that I have posted a number of St. Nicholas and Santa Claus stories in the past for Christmas online. So these will be, this will collect those in print for the first time, but there are also 2 full-length 24-page stories that have never been seen before anywhere. So even if you have read all the other stuff, you're guaranteed 48 pages of brand new material. But we have a number of different artists, including my friend CK, Doc Shaner, who is well known for his work at DC Comics, did one of the stories. Anthony Clark, aka Ned Royd, popular web cartoonist, drew one of my more popular comics, which is about the origins of the Cogatillo, the Catalonian pooping Christmas log. Some people just know me as the pooping log guy, which, fair enough. But and Emmett Graham, who draws a webcomic called Captain Tempest.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that
because Santa's in it. So that'll be out in December, the first week of December. It'll be like $10 for 80 pages, and we've got like six different covers, and they're all bangers. So pick up the one you like, buy a bunch, just give them out as presents. So yeah, that's the comics I have coming up. Other people would probably know me from my podcasts. Apocrypals is the better known of the two. It's the one I do with Chris Sims. We've kind of been on a hiatus since the spring, but we'll probably be back at some point, but it's a Bible podcast. Chris and I read through the Bible and related biblical literature, and we discuss it and try to we approach these texts from a literary and cultural perspective, and so we try to provide um, scholarly perspective. Neither of us have a degree in Bible, but I have a degree in literature, so that's something. Um, and specifically ancient literature, so that gives me some perspective.
Yeah.
But yeah, we read through regular Bible, we read through Apocrypha, we read hagiographies, um, all sorts of different texts that in order to provide the context for modern, specifically Christian, but also Jewish belief. Um, like, why do people believe what they do? You'd be surprised how much stuff comes from not the Protestant 66 books that people think of as the Bible. So that's that show. And then I also have one with my friends Matt Wilson and Erica Henderson, who also work in comics. And it's called Friends Till the End. And it is nominally a show about the Chucky Child's Play franchise. But we have exhausted all of that material. And so we also cover a number of other related movies, movies that have been referenced in Chucky stuff, movies that inspired Chucky, other movies about haunted dolls. We did The Purge for a little while just to have another franchise. We've covered all the Final Destination movies. Right now, our most recent episode is on The Boy from 2016, where a woman is hired to be a nanny for a doll who is maybe alive, and it's not a good movie. But yeah, it's fun if you want to hear me and my two friends talk about horror movies of various kinds, and then also monthly updates on Chucky related merchandise. Like, did you know there's a Chucky flavored Fanta right now? There is.
Right now?
Right now. You can go to the store and buy a bottle of Chucky's Punch. Not a sponsor of our podcast. They could be. I want a Fanta to be a sponsor of my podcast.
We'll take them for this podcast too if they're throwing sponsorships around.
Sure.
Oh,
yeah. I mean,
everybody go ahead and get a Chucky Fanta.
Does the Coca-Cola company have enough money to spare to sponsor a podcast? I don't know, but
it's true. Yeah,
but
they're stretched pretty thin.
That's my comics. That's my podcast. I don't know. Those are the main things. What else should I be talking about, John?
Well, that's a really good question because you mentioned Hector Plasm. It's returned after a really long time, right? And
yes, yeah.
And we wanted to talk to you about Hector Plasm because you base it on some authentic folklore, real mythology. I think it's a really interesting topic for the show and, of course, for this time of the year as we do our month of Halloween. So
Yeah.
I guess I need you to both explain some of the mythology behind this character in this series. The figure of the Benandanti. If you could tell us what that is, and maybe second part of the question, we'll have you talking for a while. Why this mythology? Why this for the character? If you can talk about the inspiration and the coming together of this. So if you could tell us all about that.
Absolutely. So within the fiction of the series, Hector Plasm, we learn that's not his real name because he's in a business where it's dangerous for your real name to be out there. So, but he is a member of we'll say ancient, but in a loose sense. But he's a member of an ancient cult called the Benandanti, which is in Italian means the good walkers. Basically, we usually translate it as well walkers because I like how that sounds better than good walkers. But the idea is people who wander around doing good, right? You could translate it as do-gooders if you wanted, but that kind of loses the going around part of it. They were also called in their time when we'll talk about the history of the real Benandanti in a second, but in their time in the 1500s, they were also called vagabonds. And so if you want to think about them as witch fighting hobos, that's also fine. But yeah, the idea is they're part of this cult. And how are you inducted into this cult? Well, it happens at birth. A bit of amniotic sac covers your face or your head, what they call a caul, C-A-U-L, caul. Also called the silly how. I like that term. So the story that has kind of Hector's origins and early life is called Born with a Silly How. There's other terms for it. I can't think of them all right now. The lucky hood, stuff like that. But the idea is, and I mean, there's a lot of superstition about the call from around Europe and around the world. But in this specific instance, the idea is that the birth with the call makes you a member of this cult, which gives you a number of abilities, including the ability to see and communicate with the spirits of the dead, to be able to determine true witches, and then most importantly, a thing that is kind of only obliquely referenced so far in the comic is that at certain times of the year, tied in with the seasons, the Benandanti fight battles, spiritual battles, with the Malandanti, that is evil witches, for the health and well-being of their village, specifically tied in with the prosperity of crops and the harvest and livestock and that kind of stuff. And so Hector is born into this basically responsibility. So as long as he has carries his the call with him, which he does in a cross-shaped amulet around his neck, he has greater than average luck, though he would probably dispute that. A protection from drowning, so call's popular with sailors. But also he can see ghosts, and he also has an obligation to fight witches 4 times a year. And so he is a person who wanders around doing good, and with the idea that an increase in international affairs, we'll say globalism, but without the dog whistle. The village is more global now, right? So he wanders around the world, not literally every country. Like, there's definitely some countries I'm never going to write a story about because I don't know anything about them, and also I probably shouldn't. But we see him in a bunch of different countries, and in between these battles with witches, he acts basically as a liaison between the living and the dead. Sometimes he's protecting the living from the dead, sometimes vice versa. Sometimes people are abusing the dead unknowingly or knowingly. And so we see him fight ghosts and demons and witches. And those are his primary things. He has some tools and allies on his side. He has a magic dagger. He has a ghost slaying sword. And he has 2 companions who follow him around, Sinner and Saint, a laconic cowboy and a loquacious beatnik. And they kind of serve as his conscience, and kind of his companions. They give him someone to talk to, which is a handy writing device. When you have a solo character, it's nice that there's someone who can make your character talk out loud. So far in the early 2000s, we published 2 48-page one-shots, which were both collections of short stories that had originally appeared as backups in other comics, or they had appeared in anthology series. And so we had a bunch of stories between 2 pages and 16 pages, and we threw them together. And so the first one, Hector Plasm de Mortuis, came out probably 2006. And that one's got the Hector origin story that I mentioned, Born with a Silly How. It's got a couple of Western themed stories that we did for a Western horror anthology. The second collection is called Totentanz, the Dance of Death. And that one is Halloween themed. And it has various shorts that we did for Halloween, including and some of these stories are a little more experiments, to put it lightly. One of the stories is actually a recipe for pan de muerto, which is the bread you make for Dia de los Muertos. One of them is a silent German impressionist movie, but as a comic, that is meant to be played in conjunction with listening to Camille Saint-Saëns' Danse Macabre. So yeah, and all the text is in French, except for the text that's in Old High German. So you can tell that I was really aiming for the widest possible audience with this book. I can't imagine why we had to go on hiatus for 15 years, but
also, why you're on a show called Talk Gnosis, which is full of us talking about really obscure, like complicated but interesting subjects. It feels like, yeah, there's not to say that we're not an amazing podcast, but if you're going to do an esoteric subject, to be on a podcast that is itself esoteric to find is going to be interesting.
This is the potential crossover audience. This is these are the people who are going to go, oh well, all right, but it's So I mean, hopefully listeners would find something of interest in the older one shots. They're pretty much, as far as I know, pretty much only available either secondhand, like you would find them in back issues at a comic shop, or you can get them digitally. I know they're available on what used to be Comixology, but now it's just Amazon. If you go to Amazon and you look up the Kindle version of these books, you can get them. They're like $2 or $3, and so for $6 all in, you can have all of the currently existing Hector Plasm material until October 15th, in which case a new issue will come out. We're gonna do a collection as well, probably late next spring or early next summer, 2026. That will have the old books plus the current miniseries. So, if people want to hold on to until then, that's okay. If you want to wait, or you could double dip. It's great.
Look,
double dip, give it as a gift.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, yeah. So if you want to catch up before the new book drop, don't worry. I mean, I wouldn't say worry about the new book at all. Like there's a recap that'll tell you everything you need to know, right? Like he can see ghosts, he has magic swords. That's really all you need to know going into it. But I think the new series is pretty accessible. But if you want to know the Hector's whole deal, very easy. Go to the most popular retail website in the world and type in the name of it, and it'll come up. And you can have it for $3, and it'll go direct to your tablet. So,
what? So, like when I was reading through it, one of the things that struck me was that I don't know, like the mythological accuracy, the folkloric accuracy, made it so much more engaging than like a random or like a just like coded scary ghost or monster or creature. And is there, I guess, like what not every creator would feel the drive to put that much work in,
I think that's probably true. And I know that authenticity is a loaded word, and often I have on other podcasts said that authenticity is a trap. Although I was mostly talking about Chinese food, but I personally would not. I don't feel comfortable when I'm writing on like folkloric and mythological concepts. I don't feel comfortable adjusting the mythology and folklore to fit what I want. Instead, I feel like I have to allow the things as they are to dictate the direction that I go. Right. I mean, that's not entirely true. Obviously, obviously things get adjusted for the sake of the story. But if you think about a lot of other shows that feature ghosts, and even ones that at least nominally include mythological figures, something like Supernatural, which, long running show, includes a lot of different world mythology, a lot of biblical stuff. But you can see there's stuff, if you know the particular creatures that they're referencing, you can see a lot of times it feels really clear that they had a concept and then they just looked for a name that kind of came close to what they wanted to do already in the episode. And it's like, I can't really, I don't know that I can do that. you know, with something like a ghost, it can be easy because we all know, oh, a ghost is a dead person, so I can give any kind of backstory that I want. But to me, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel honest. And also you can, if I don't know, at least as a consumer of uh ghost and horror material, of which I definitely am, uh, it definitely feels different. You can feel when something is artificial, a complete literary creation, but there's a difference when there's some authentic belief behind something. And I'm aiming for that feeling. There are definitely plenty of works that do hit that, right. We're kind of in a boom of folk horror as a subgenre in film, in literature, um, and a lot of that incorporates a lot of authentic folk belief in a way that I think is part of what gives it a unique flavor. We're not talking about folk horror, but not all folk horror has to incorporate folkloric beliefs. That's not what makes a folk horror, but a lot of it does. So I don't want any folk horror fans getting at me for saying that folk horror is just horror with folklore in it. Um, but uh, um, but anyway, yeah. So something like, I mean, the inevitable comparison with Hector Plasm is going to be Hellboy,
Mhm.
because it's also about a wandering. He's not really wandering. He has assignments, but he does later wander on once he leaves the bureau. But a wandering paranormal investigator who fights a bunch of different monsters and stuff. Ultimately, Hellboy becomes something else. But a lot of the early short stories and miniseries and stuff that are set in his past have these kind of self-contained monster hunting vibes, and so there. And certainly, Hellboy is an influence. I would be the world's biggest liar. I mean, if I said Hellboy has nothing to do with Hector, which I mean, it definitely does. Mike Mignola is like my favorite comics creator alive. So, um, it would be very silly if I were try to like defensively be like, no, what is this hell man you talk about? Like couldn't get away from that. But like we have different scopes. We do pull from a lot of the same sources, which I think is ultimately what's going to be the source of most of the comparisons between Hellboy and Hector. Is that like I can read Hellboy and go, oh, he's been reading X or Y because I also have read X and Y,
Mhm,
um,
mhm.
or he's watched this movie and that inspired him to make this story. So, but yeah, but Hellboy has that same kind of feeling because Mignola is pulling from real authentic myth and folklore. And I think that is a big part of what makes Hellboy feel different from Ghostbusters, right? Like, I mean, obviously
Yeah.
Ghostbusters has its own appeal, but nobody's going to Ghostbusters to go, aha, here's how I really learn about ghosts, right?
Yeah. There is also like I've got a thought here, Jonathan, and then maybe I can sort of punt it towards you because I think you'll have some responses to this as well. But like um it actually kind of makes me think of like Tolkien versus a lot of what I think the epic fantasy that grew up after Tolkien, where a lot of that epic fantasy ultimately they're purely making up cultures and names and like places on a map and things like that. They're throwing in apostrophes to make it sound like elven or weird or ancient or something. Um, but it only is whatever the story needed it to be, and that's as far as the sort of the sort of the cultural depth goes, is that it only possesses what the story needed it to possess. Whereas, because Tolkien was trying to almost retell an English myth, he's bringing in cultural resonances that are like Scandinavian, that are Celtic, that are German, that are like from all over the world. And so part of what gives Lord of the Rings its resonance isn't its detail, but it's the cultural background that's behind it. And there are writers today like Guy Gavriel Kay, who's Canadian, who does intentionally bring in actual history and myth into a, like, he sort of files the numbers off a little, but like he's not trying to hide it from you. Um, but then again, yeah, there's other fantasy authors where they simply say, like, and then 4,000 years ago this wizard did this thing in this place, and that 4,000 years ago has no sense beyond what they're not hinting at the Roman Empire, they're just hinting ancient, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm bringing this up here is that I think there's something for me about both Hector Plasm and Hellboy, but like I think about Hector Plasm that like, as Gnostics who love to find the nooks and crannies of a mythology and figure out how that also connects to where we often respond to things. What you're saying there about authenticity is that it's coming from a resonance that goes beyond the story, but that fuels the story in a way. And I think there's a special sauce there that I think gives it. I think like, it's harder to make, arguably, but it's got more fuel because it's bringing more in, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And that
that
John.
act Oh, yeah,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead. You still have some more? Go ahead.
Well, just to send it to you, John, is simply that I think, like, what I read this feeling like, yes, John loves this, I know, and I love this, but I see why John loves it,
Yeah.
because it's full of all the things that give somebody like John and I the chance to go, oh, okay, I knew that, but I didn't know that, so I'm gonna find out more about that.
Yeah, I think that's 100% accurate. I get the brain tingles. But that reminds me, does actually lead to a question for you, Benito. But Jason's example of Tolkien, his point in making Lord of the Rings was he wanted an Anglo-Saxon epic, right? Because he felt that the English epics were Norman or Celtic or Arthurian, and there was basically just Beowulf, right? So it was
Yeah.
very, very almost anally authentic in many respects. And he was close friends with C.S. Lewis, and it drove him crazy that in Narnia, right, he's just slamming together all these random mythologies. He's
Yep.
tearing out his hair. He's like, well, you can't put in Santa Claus and Greek myths and a centaur. No, you can't do that.
Yep. I was gonna say, I mean, that's the example, right? Like, that's the
Yeah.
difference between, Tolkien and Lewis are the good counter examples of, like, pulling on something that feels authentic versus something that feels artificial. No offense to Lewis, Narnia is great in its own way. It's not Tolkien, and
Yeah.
we all know that. We all know that.
And Tolkien, I agree with the people who make the argument that Lord of the Rings is a deeply Christian piece. I think it's very hard not to, but of course it doesn't. It's not like Narnia where Susan's going to hell because she wore makeup one time. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's not
Yeah.
this very crass turning to the camera. "Oh, guess who the lion is, right? Like
Yeah.
but my actual question, Benito, you're actually a person who spends most of his time immersed in myth and folklore, right? But with
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair
yeah,
to say for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's most of your life. And I'm wondering, do you feel that myth and folklore sort of has a unique power in the world of narrative? Maybe you don't have to be a Jungian or a Joseph Campbell guy, but I feel like it does. Again, it's a finger like reaching into your brain and poking something deep and primal. Like, do you agree with that? Do you think the mythology does have a particular relationship to people? It doesn't have to be mystical or even that semi-Jungian mystical stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's a major part of my personal philosophy, my personal philosophy, but that I talk about a lot. But yeah, and it actually came up last night. I was at dinner with some friends, and my friend looked over. We were sitting on the outside. It was nice weather last night. We were sitting outside on the patio at this restaurant, and they had this I don't know, fake. They had this gate fence that had artificial uh, hedges growing around it, and my friend turned and looked at it, and she goes, "Oh, that's not even real." And I said, "Well, for certain definitions of real." Um, and that's my approach to a lot of things, right? And I talk about this on Apocalypse a lot. Do I think Santa Claus is real? Do I think ghosts are real? Well, for certain definitions of real, yes. A- and in some ways, the literal truth and literal existence of a thing is the least important kind of existence.
Mm.
In those things, like I try to make clear, I in the most fundamental level, I'm absolutely, a non-believer in any kind of supernatural. I'm fully materialist, humanist, however you want to think about it. I do not literally believe anything supernatural exists. Sorry to the listeners of the show who might believe otherwise. However, I believe that stories, these kind of things, ghosts, Santa Claus, Superman, God, these things carry such powerful metaphorical and semiotic resonances that they are real from following certain definitions, right? Um, and so yeah, I do genuinely talk about how Santa Claus is real because he might as well be. Just because he doesn't literally exist doesn't I mean he does exist. I can see pictures of him. I can ask people who genuinely believe in him. They might be children, but okay. But he things happen because of him. You know, so yes, I do think a thing that makes mythology and folklore distinct from even something like a fairy tale, and although fairy tales carry a lot of semiotic power as well,
Mhm.
but generally speaking, fairy tales are not uh, understood to contain elements of truth, right? Whereas
Mhm.
mythology, mythology and folklore often carry some element of belief, and in many cases, kind of a sacred element, and so that causes them to have an even greater resonance because they have, if not a religious, then at least a spiritual or cosmological um, resonance for the people hearing these things. And so, yeah, I think there is I think there's kind of a like a primal connection with these things that you're not going to get with a purely literary creation, something that's
Mhm.
made up whole cloth, even in the hands of a really skilled writer. Um, I think these kind of stories that you hear, and that even if it's just when you're a kid and you hear these stories, and it's like, oh, this house is haunted because of X or Y, or did you know that uh, somebody killed somebody under this bridge or whatever, even if that stuff's not true, that sticks with you, and it gets to you, because even if you grow up and go, oh well, that's not real, like it's still kind of in there, and you carry that stuff with you, and yeah, so I think that's what gives a lot of that material um a lot of power, because there's a sense, even if it's subconscious or something, that it's real. It feels real in a way that other stuff doesn't.
There's something there about like say perhaps somebody who would call themselves an atheist, but like would take the long way around rather than walk through a graveyard. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, for sure.
Um, not because they think the ghosts are going to come out, but because there's even just a sense of like inappropriateness. You know what I mean? That
Yeah,
they or the same atheist maybe who would still speak in hushed tones in a cathedral. You know,
yeah. I think
like
that's absolutely true, because yeah, we carry some of that with us, even if on our most conscious superego level, we're like, no, this means nothing. This is just a building. This is just a park with a greater than average number of skeletons in it. Whatever. uh, yeah, there's still something that you carry with you, whether it's religious and it's about respect for the dead, or whether it's ghosts, or something. I
yeah.
think we carry that stuff with us. Yeah.
Um, this also kind of makes me think of uh, you might know where I'm going here, but also some of the viewers as well. Like Alan Moore's been a real proponent of the idea that like magic and art are basically on the same spectrum, and that
Mm,
by making art, you're practicing you're essentially practicing magic, whether or not you're by his definition of it, you're practicing magic whether or not you're specifically intentionally calling it that. And I see a lot of resonance there because I think that's probably also in a same spectrum of experience with what we call religion. Again, like that there's whether or not it's literally, physically, externally, ontologically true is the wrong question, because that's not what the process is engaging with in your mind.
Right.
And I think maybe as a slight difference, Benito, you and I I think I do have a crack in my philosophy for where some like weird mystery kind of sneaks in, if that
Sure.
makes sense.
Yeah.
But quite a lot of it is that like I don't feel like I want to rely on um at any point Santa Claus, Santa Claus as a cipher for any given mythology, or a cosmology, that I don't need any of it to be specifically true in a specific way to hold the rest of my faith together. You know?
Yeah.
Because if I do, and then if it's ever proven wrong, then
They
I've got a
haven't
problem.
found them in the North Pole yet, so
Yeah.
I guess that's been
you're
proven wrong, though. North Pole's a big place.
you're looking in the wrong place. You're looking at the wrong North Pole. Did you cross the Riphean Mountains? Did you pass the Griffins and the Arimaspians? If not, you went the wrong way.
Exactly. Yeah. I went instead to that place in, maybe I went to the wrong pole. I found Lovecraft's, what were they? The old ones?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, in Antarctica.
Yeah.
Benito, I wanted to ask, why the Benandanti? Like, can you talk about sort of the origins of the character? Why this
Yeah.
mythology? Where did you already want to write I should also back up, sorry, the people may not be aware, but the supernatural detective was a really popular character, still is, but was a mainstream popular character for almost 100 years, like in the pulps
Yeah.
and the magazines,
For
right?
sure. The
So
idea,
yeah.
supernatural investigator or occult detectives, they're popularly called. Yeah, there's a whole like lineage and tradition of that, and certainly, especially now, I'm really focused on trying to play around with being part of that tradition and legacy. So the first couple, at least, of new Hector stories are going to, on some level, really. I'm going to be I'm trying to pull from some of these specific, like weird fiction writers and ghost story writers. I'm trying not to give away who's the inspiration behind um, Hunt the Bigfoot, because I don't want to give away the ending of the story. But there is definitely an author, I would guess, John, that you probably have read. That was an inspiration. We're gonna have M.R. James, Algernon Blackwood, other people like that in the future. M.R. James didn't really write occult detectives, but he's like the ghost story guy. So, and his stories are typically about doddering antiquarians who dig up the wrong artifact and take it where they shouldn't. But yeah, definitely part of that tradition. You were still talking, but I interrupted you.
Oh, no, that was basically it. So that was the question, is combining these two things, right? Did you want to be part of this heritage, write this character, and what
Yeah,
drew you to the Benandanti? How did you find out about it? Why were you like, "Oh, this is the mythology. This is it."
yeah. Well, here's the actual answer to the origin of Hector Plasm as a character. Um, when I was in college, my friends and I drove 5 hours to East St. Louis to see a They Might Be Giants concert. Um, and while we were there for that weekend, we also went to Six Flags. And my friend had previously worked at Fiesta, Texas, which I think at that time was also a Six Flags. It might still be a Six Flags. Maybe it's not even called Fiesta, Texas anymore. I don't know. But because he had an employee badge, two of us were able to get in free. There were three of us, and so we basically ended up splitting one ticket three ways, which was good because we were poor, broke college students who had spent all our money driving to St. Louis. Um, and it was October, and in October, theme parks go Halloween crazy, which I love. And a thing I didn't even know or anticipate was that when we were there was a demonstration by I don't remember which one, but there was a demonstration by a paranormal investigation team, the likes of which are very common on cable TV now, but at that time was much harder to learn about that kind of stuff. So I was like, guys, we have to go. We have to go to this, and I have to learn about their little machines that detect ghosts. And we went and we saw the presentation. I don't remember that much about it, but I thought it was cool. They had some books on sale, and I bought one. I bought this one right here that you can see. This is the Encyclopedia of Ghosts and Spirits by Rosemary Ellen Guiley, the second edition. Yeah, it's a big fat book full of all sorts of stories about ghosts and spirits. And this was a major source of knowledge and research for me, a good starting point. And as I was flipping through and reading, that's where I first read about the Benandanti. It's in there under the entry for Caul, Caul again. I'm reading, and a thin membrane of amniotic fluid, which sometimes inexplicably remains covering the head of a newborn child at birth. Since the time of Romans, to be born with a caul is to be blessed with luck, protection, especially against drowning, and supernatural powers, such as the ability to divine the future and see and converse with ghosts and spirits, even if the individual is deaf, etc. Right? So that was the start of me. I read that and my imagination immediately sparks. Originally, it wasn't Hector Plasm from the start. Originally, it was me and Nate Bellegarde, my frequent collaborator, co-creator of Hector, one of my best friends. We were spitballing what we would do if we were making a Ghostbusters comic. And the answer was it would be something that wasn't very much like Ghostbusters at all, because it was going to be a lot less comedy, and it was going to be 4 completely new guys. And I don't even remember most of the stuff we came up with about the 4 guys, but one of them was going to be a Benandanti, and then another one of them was going to be fall in love with a ghost. Those 2 guys got combined into Hector Plasm later, because I don't fully remember the order of things. This is more than 20 years ago, but at some point, Robert Kirkman, who Walking Dead, Invincible, that guy, who also collaborator and boss for me, and friend, longtime friend, 25-year friend. But at some point he said to me and Nate, "You guys should just make a Tim Burton style superhero." And so we kind of took our Ghostbusters ideas, and it became Hector. He's not really a superhero, but in a way you can see him as that, right? But he doesn't really fit into a superhero milieu. But the main source for what's in this encyclopedia, and indeed still the most definitive source on the Benandanti, is a single text. It is this book, The Night Battles by Carlo Ginzburg. The Night Battles, Witchcraft and Agrarian Cults in the 16th and 17th Centuries. It's an Italian text. The Benandanti, as you may have been able to pick up from the name, were an Italian cult in Friuli, in the northeast corner of Italy, the stuff right up by Slovenia. And so it's kind of where Italian, German, and Slavic cultures all kind of mishmash together. But this is from the 60s. So it has a lot of what would these days be considered kind of outdated ideas in terms of looking for that kind of Joseph Campbell monomyth-esque thing, looking for pre-Christian survivals and
organized counter cults of sort of pre-Christian thought. That was a big trend in scholarship, and
absolutely. And so this text includes a lot of conclusions that I would not agree with. But the important thing is Ginsburg wrote this after he was looking in a monastery, and he uncovered a whole host of documents that recorded interviews from the Inquisition against people who were accused of being Benandanti. And so our information comes from people who were self-proclaimed Benandanti. And even into the 20th century, the name Benandanti continued to be used to mean witches even up until the 20th century. And that is a big part because of their condemnation by the Inquisition, which is what a lot of what we see in this text. So we can get the information on individuals who believed themselves to be members. There's probably, I would say, some influence of night terrors and sleep paralysis probably play a role, because a lot of it talks about your spirit leaving your body while you're sleeping, and you go out at nighttime and you see all these things. You see a mysterious figure standing by your bed, right? But the idea is that at these times of the year, they leave their bodies, their spirits leave their bodies. They often assume animal form. They go out over the fields and they meet in the field of battle against evil witches. They fight battles. The good witches, the Benandanti, fight with fennel stalks. The malandanti, the ill walkers, the bad witches, use sorghum stalks, and they fight for the fate of the crops and the harvest and the livestock and whatever across the year. At the 4 days known as the Ember Days, which are they're just one a season. They're holy days. One is their time periods of fasting before Pentecost, St. Lucy's Day, Lent. Right before Lent, and I used to be able to say them all, but I don't know. One in the fall time, but they're associated with things like the grain harvest, the grape harvest, the birthing of livestock, and that kind of stuff. So their battles would determine the fate of those things for the year, and there's also the added bit where after the battles are over, they wander around the village in search of fresh water, and if people have not left fresh water out for them to drink, they will go into their cellars and they will drink the wine from their wine casks and then pee in them, and that's what the witches will do. But the Benandanti will try and stop them from peeing in your wine. So it's interesting to see these guys who are trying to be very clear. They're like, yes, we have magical powers, but we use them in service of Christ. We were recruited by an angel when we turned 20 years old. We were born with a call. We were recruited at age 20, and our period of service is from age 20 to 40. We carry our call around, and when we're not fighting witches on the Thursdays during the Ember Days, we heal children. We protect them from witches. We have healing magic. We commune with ghosts. That kind of stuff. And you can see in these interviews the Inquisitor trying to be like, okay, you were recruited by an angel. Could this angel have been Satan? And you can really see the way the Inquisitor kind of starts to make them doubt even their own convictions about what they've been saying since the beginning. And so as it goes on, you can really see the gradual demonization of this cult. And even though from the earliest interviews that we see in these texts, there's constant reference to Christian symbols, and that this is done for Christ. The powers are granted by Christ and his angels. Ginsburg still goes, well, this is clearly, a pre-Christian agrarian cult that survived. And it's like, this is the 16th century in Italy. You're telling me a pagan cult survived in Italy for 1,200 years, and they were doing it? I don't think so. This is it's just folk Christianity. Sorry, right? Like so many of these things that people are looking for pre-Christian, pagan, survivalist beliefs, and it's just like, well, no, it's just Christianity, but for peasants who didn't know how to read the Orthodox books. and so they made up their own thing.
Exactly. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
No, well, so like, because I actually have like some sympathy to this like desire to find something that's like outside the aegis of Christianity,
Oh,
like that's
yeah.
outside this sort of like overwhelming, totalizing narrative. Uh, I'm not anti-Christian, but I'm definitely not like I'm not a proponent, and so it is this thing of where like it does make my ears perk up to think like, oh, what if something could, and it's an attractive. I think the other thing too is that it's an attractive idea. It's a sexy idea. This thing that's
Yeah.
like stayed underneath the whole time.
Oh,
Quick thing
it's
too.
so powerful for the imagination. It just pulls right towards it. And, we have that in Gnosticism and
Yeah.
different alternative religions as well, right? It's like, oh, actually, it went underground and it was preserved from persecution and such, right? It's a very powerful mythology.
For sure, and
And
certainly by mid-century, 20th century, you've got a strong countercultural impulse to be looking for anything that serves as a counter narrative to the Christian hegemony, right? And
Mhm.
so it has that kind of pull as well, because you want to be able to go, well, there's this strand, but what I think you have to do instead is realize of the power of folk belief versus orthodoxy, right? And my because orthodoxy is what supports that hegemony, right? And so
Mhm.
I have always said, orthodoxy is a fake idea. It's the same thing, right? Orthodoxy is it doesn't pass the smell test in the same way that those literary folktales don't, right? Orthodoxy is the C.S. Lewis, folk Christianity is the Tolkien, and
Mhm.
there's a different feeling
Ooh.
to the level of authenticity of it, and Trinitarianism, that sounds fake.
But I do want to say or clarify, but obviously you guys could disagree with me, but I think this is generally accepted by good scholars that we don't have these organized doctrinal counter movements, but the quote unquote pagan pre-Christian ideas exist almost more as memes in the original Dawkins sense, right?
Yeah.
These ideas, they stick around, but they get transformed, taken out of their context, and become very Christianized, right? So a Christian who considers themselves a Christian, prays to the Christian God as part of the Christian church, may have folk beliefs that are descended from from pre-Christian ideas, right? But if you ask a person who holds these beliefs, if you hop in your time machine and ask them, they're not going to agree with that.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely, that's true. And also, I don't even know that they need to be, actually directly influenced by pre-existing pagan beliefs. I think it's just like what we were talking about before. Certain things have a kind of semiotic power, right? Like
Mhm.
for example, it's very common these days, on social media, TikTok and stuff, to see people talk when it becomes Easter time. People are like, "Oh, Easter is obviously a pagan. What does it have to do with eggs and rabbits and stuff?" And it's like, well, it's because it's in the springtime, and these things are powerful symbolically and as metaphors for the renewal of spring. Uh, It doesn't need to be more than that, right? Like
Yeah,
there's not a secret cult of Ishtar in Roman Britain or whatever people are arguing. It's
Yeah.
like they look around and they go, "Oh, those bunnies do be having babies," and that is a sign that life will survive. And that's and resurrection. Those things go together, right? And
Yeah.
it's like there's people knew what metaphors were, and
yeah.
For
even in
since
castle times.
like language is metaphor, like the
Absolutely.
ability. It's a bunch of semiotic symbols we use as scaffolding around ideas. Um,
Absolutely.
and so it's been metaphor since we could talk. And there's also something there too. It's like, yeah, it's not that there's an older this idea often that older is better, and that if you find the real myth that was older than the other myth, then you found the real truth. It's that no, it's like both Ishtar and Jesus, well, not Jesus specifically in this framework, but just this idea of resurrection. Resurrection, or like this idea feeling of renewal, that's the old thing. There's not a specific like um placeholder that got there first and owns it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's very funny though to see people who are trying they're like, "Oh, this god resurrected and this god resurrected and this god resurrected." that's got to be all connected. I was like, you don't think 3 independent cultures came up with the idea of wanting to defeat death? Like, you don't,
Yeah.
you think that could only be copied from somebody else's paper? Nobody thought, boy, I wish we were more powerful than death independently. Come on.
And there is also too, like, the that drive to find a pre-Christian or like sidereal version of Christianity that's older or alongside. I think that's also like when Gnosticism really kicked off with like the Dead Sea, or not the Nag Hammadi Codex and a lot of those things, is that like it created a narrative where you could access some of these Christian images sideways, and sort of, it's like participate in sacraments without feeling like you were also somehow participating in 2,000 years of imperialism, you know? Like you kind of got this ability to which is ultimately like, if you, I think John's even said this, like the Gnostics didn't consider themselves like these like leather jacket wearing hardcore counterculture rebels. They were like, at best, maybe like experimenters in the same themes that everybody else was doing, and their stream just didn't like win out. It wasn't the most popular, you
Yeah,
know?
right. Yeah, for
And-
sure.
but we get but for us, and this kind of even goes back to what you were saying there about like the idea or the story of Santa Claus. The story of the counterculture Gnostic rebels is powerful, you know what I mean, and is real enough that now we have counterculture Gnostic rebels today.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
whether or not they existed, and like that maybe there's somebody in somewhere in the world who like reads the Ginsberg's book, or reads your comic and then finds Ginsberg's book and then like decides to start their own agrarian pre-Christian, you know what I mean, Benandanti cult, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do hope that people do buy the book and use it as a Bible for their new cult. So get out there, get those copies. We should start probably to lead towards wrap up. Jason, did you have any final questions?
I do. I have a question for you. So, John, like this was definitely like listeners, John. This was John's episode to really drive forward. He pulled Benito and I together for this one, and yeah. So, like, I think we've talked a lot about the book, and Benito's talked a lot about where it came from. I want to hear like from you specifically, like what captured you about the book, what captured you about the Benedante, because I feel like that's been simmering, but it's in the background a lot of this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. I think we really covered it. I mean, one, I really wanted to do the show because it's always fun talking to Benito, and we need some Halloween programming, right? And I feel like he should be able to come out of the crypt, right? We were able to release him until he's put back in January. But I think a lot of the factors that we've been discussing is why I like it so much, right? Because I'm a nerd. I get the dopamine hit from recognizing some of this mythology from reading about it in the past, right? And I think there is that deeper what we're talking about, how because the myth is there, it sort of affects and moves me in different ways. But also, it's just really good, right? I like I like the original series as being short stories. The art is awesome. Benito's an excellent writer. Characters, dialogue, plot twists. It's great, and I've also always been a fan of the occult detective. Right, going back from an early age, it's a character I always really liked, and when I was a little bit older, kind of finding some of those collections and paperbacks that they would do of the older material in anthology style. So already having a fondness for one, occult detectives, two, comic books, three, authentic mythology. It's it's just crack cocaine for me, right? It's catnip. So well,
Amazing.
okay, everybody, put down your stakes. Don't drive them through Benito's heart yet. He has months left to walk the earth. Everybody would give all your money to Benito. Buy everything that we've talked about. But if you have
Great idea.
any left over, go to patreon.com/Gnostic. You can help us keep the show going for as little as $1 a month. You can also do one-time donations at paypal.me/Gnostic. Benito, we did everything backwards. We started with the plugs, but is there anything else you want to say or plug before we go?
Yeah, sure. If you want to hear the things I have to say, you can find me on Blue Sky at benitocereno.bsky.social. And then if you go to my profile there's a link where you can find all my other stuff, my podcasts and everything. But I'm also on Patreon, patreon.com/Benito Cereno. And there I do all sorts of stuff. I have been for years now serializing Latin translations. I'm currently approaching the end of a 18th century Latin sci-fi satire novel by the Danish author Ludwig Holberg called The Underground Journey of Niels Clem. Although I might change it to something like I might call my version Niels Clem's Descent into the Hollow Earth or something like that. I don't know. Who knows? But it is a Gulliver's Travel style travel sci-fi satire about a guy who falls into the Hollow Earth and visits different planets there where people are trees or monkeys or talking string basses and that kind of stuff. And so I've post that every week, and also updates to my ongoing Christmas mythology and new mythology of Christmas. I don't have a full title for it right now. I do call it, I have described it as the Silmarillion of Santa Claus. Although that gives you kind of the wrong idea tonally, but it is about creating a completely comprehensive mythology of the life of not only Santa Claus, but as much world Christmas folklore as I can incorporate. Trying to be more thorough than any of other source book that I have ever read. So I've got that. Plus I do horror movie reviews and stuff like that on my Patreon.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Benito.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.